So, hello guys, Austerus here. We're gonna talk about being a lightning sorcerer in a new season, season 1, season of Malignant. And first of all, a little bit of demonstration. We reached level 75 just now. A little bit of demonstration about the damage, the good points, the bad points of the build. And let's get to the dungeons, for example. The lowest level 26 I have over here. So how we fare against the monsters of my level, of level 75 and above, and how do we fare against monsters of in higher tier dungeons, level 40 and above, 20 basically levels above me. The build is about a lot of critical hits, and it have a very good cleaning speed, first and foremost. So let's see the dungeon here. What kind of level monsters we have? Yeah, the build all about critical hits, critical damage, which is demonstrated, and we're gonna talk about it in a moment. So here we go, level 80 monsters. That's 5 levels above me. That's 5 levels above me. That's not a problem at all. Not a problem. Build also quite mobile. We can jump twice with my dodge evade skill, and we can utilize my chain lightning basically every very often. Like look at this, there's elites here. They got to erase it right away. So that's a damage against the monsters that are that's just like 5 levels above me. Basically, you may say like my own level. Alright, what about the guys are 20 levels above? This is while we have a good damage against especially group of enemies for this build. The shortcoming of this build is relative low survivability compared to the build you have for Frozen Mage, when we have generated constant barriers. Alright. I did try to improve my survivability here. We're gonna talk about that in a bit. So let's see, level 38, 41, 41. So there's 41. Boss lifesteal. Okay, that's 41. So I mean in level 90 something enemies. You're gonna see the difference right here against those enemies and enemies we just fought, which were like only 80. Also, look at my chain lightning here. I mean Kraken energy. I just didn't done nothing, and Kraken energy kill this small group of enemies just on its own. That's another positive build, positive point of the build. Alright, you just walk in past the enemies. The only problem is killing enemies passively without doing anything. You're not generating Kraken energy by killing enemy with Kraken energy, right? So you need to do some other mechanic. So level 95 enemies.
I need time.
20 levels above me. Normal groups of enemies are dying, no problem here. Alright, they're just normal ghouls. Just normal ghouls. But elites here, especially with the suppressor affixes here, they gonna be a trouble. You see already the damage they applying to you.
I need time to prepare that.
Yeah. You see already the damage they doing to you. So if you're not fast enough, like proccing
I'm not ready yet.
proccing your survival skills, you're gonna get wrecked. So there's another guy with
I need time to
suppressive affix, and we're taking our sweet time killing it. But normal groups of enemies are dying quite fast to this build. like I was demonstrated, even them being 20 levels above me.
I'm not ready yet.
So this build absolutely exceed against fighting opponents. Well, it would be also powerful if there was a couple of elites staying really close to each other. This is a feature of the build when it explodes the enemy and making that way. In that case, in that way, making tremendous enemy damage to enemies that stay in the groups. So let's talk about all of this. Let's talk about good points, bad points, and all the build planning, all the build damage overall. I played the game for about 3.5 hours per day on this build. Took me 16 days to reach a level 75. Obviously, I wasn't like leveling up in a group. The solo level up using a potion, 5% to experience, and using a little bit of a bonus from seasonal blessing, 7% to experience. Still took me 16 days to reach a level 75, and I think it's kind of slow. But then again, I spent some time to just like thinking about build and managing the build. Here we go. The build is centered around using the chain lightning. It has 14 maximum damage, 14k and almost 500. But when we get all the buffs to apply to this, it's reaching like around 19k or 18.5k. Even more depending on situation. So there's a lot of like damage multipliers coming from Maligan Hearts and other like glyphs and a different kind of shenanigans. But yeah, main damage here, main attack and skill that using your resource, which is mana for sorcerer, is chain lightning. It's very good. The moment the only problem with chain lightning, you need to actually aim sometimes. Like you need to hit a first monster. The moment you hit the first monster, you just chain to another automatically, right? But you can miss if you like shoot it like somewhere. And it costs 35 mana, so early on you can have a mana problem with. This build doesn't have any problem with mana generation. We get in replenishing my mana. We are collecting Kraken energy, so it's very mobile build, I could say. We just not staying in one place. We move in, we jump in from point to point with my teleport. It's 7.3 cooldown, but our skill set giving us ability to reset those cooldown or shorten them very fast, so I can jump every 4 seconds, even faster, depending on how many enemies I'm facing currently. Right, so third skill is a lightning spear, which is not significant damage, but every time I proc a lightning spear, it's boosting my other skills damage. We're gonna see the skills. We're also using unstable currents here, basically for fighting elites and bosses. So it's tremendous boost to your generation if you're a Kraken energy, infinite mana for you, and way more like this broken random shock skills, which is doing also damage. There's also Arc Lash I'm using sometimes on that build when I'm want to stun enemy. It's doing a decent damage. It's have some short area range, but it's not really a skill I'm using that often late in a game. So it was like basically a starter skill, which is still keeping because you're still dealing damage sometimes. But main skill, like I say, is a chain lightning, and it's like the main damage coming from. Obviously, any self-respecting sorcerer build. Gonna use a flame shield here for that survivability boost, invulnerability. When you get crowd control, you can just press flame shield, and in a moment you're out of crowd control and you are immune to everything for 2.5 seconds basically. So that's the skill rotation we have here. Every shock skills have cooldown reduction every time my Kraken energy zap something, and sometimes if I can use my ultimate twice in a minute, or even thrice if it's very dense battlefield with a lot of enemies there. Jesus Christ, the game is just lagging so much here, just staying in a place. But yeah. So, the skills itself. The skill tree. Let's take a look at here. Like I say, we're still using our clash. For the damage, it's swipe critical strikes additional time if a critical strike, and stunned enemies just reduce it cooldown in general by 0.15, so that's helping with my reduction cooldown when I stun the enemy. This build is also another thing to mention, is also centered about doing a critical damage and improving my critical strike damage overall, and every basically second attack we deal in, most of the cases a critical strike, right? So that's a feature of the build, critical strikes and critical damage. We're gonna delve in that a little bit more later. So yeah, here's my chain lightning distribution, 8 points here, 3 points from items. We get in, so it could be like 4 points from items, just didn't got good gloves for getting that even more damage from. So every time chain lightning critical strike per bones, right? There is a critical here, so that's why I say in every second strike is critical. And when critical strikes, we get in forming this Kraken energy, which has happened quite often. So that's my main generation of my Kraken energy. Kraken energy in that regard, we're just gonna jump a little bit here. So we have this passive here of static discharge. Critical strikes with shock skill have a chance to form Kraken energy, and upon Kraken energy you gain, upon absorbing it, you gain 12 mana. So every time you saw how many Kraken energy there was lying all around the battlefield when we fought the enemies previously. That's just keeping my mana very high always. I have still a shocking impact here whenever I stun an enemy. It's a very questionable decision. We can make some use of those points. So I did use stuns more in basically when I was using Arc Lash and in early stages of the build. But this is could go to some different points all over altogether. So it's very questionable. You definitely can replace this for something better. I have points in ball lightning here to generation additional damage and a Kraken energy, because we use an aspect that randomly generates this bolt of lightning, and it happens quite often, I would say, and we just get in this riding the tide to get in the bonus damage from it. But defensive skills, teleport, main defensive skill, and flame shield. As on my previous builds, I using a flame shield restoring 50% of my missing life. It's helping tremendously, And teleport, we are teleporting dealing damage. We are unstoppable, so if you get crowd control, short teleport, you get back, deal the damage, you're good. Teleport cooldown decreased by a second per enemy hit, and teleport again in damage reduction for 30 seconds after you teleport. So this is one another point that giving a survivability to this build. You teleporting often, you getting this damage reduction for 30 seconds. We have a glass cannon here for more damage, 18x multiplier damage. We have 1 point in elemental attunement. Sometimes it's resetting my defensive skills. It's partially helping me my flame shield to regain its charges, because 18 seconds cooldown is very long, and I'm using aspect to shorten it a little bit, reset rather than say cooldown, which just happened. So in general, I can press my flame shield every 5 seconds, I would say, in general, depending on how many enemies we're fighting. So that's also helping a lot of survivability, but I'm still dying quite a bit here or there, fighting level enemies that use 95 enemies. Happens if my reactions sleep for just half a second, right? Half a second shorter on pressing my flame shield, half a second shorter pressing my potion, I'm gonna be dead despite all this damage reduction we have from multiple sorcerers, right? We have that mana shield, damage reduction for 5 seconds after using the mana. I'm making sure I'm regularly using a mana. A line of elements for damage reduction from elites. There's my lightning spear. Have critical striking with lightning spear, again increased critical strike chance for its duration, right? And collecting kraken energy increases damage for lightning spear. The reason I'm using lightning spear here is for getting this conjuration mastery, so I can, with my build, I have multiple lightning spear flying around, and they also increasing my damage overall by 4% for each spear. The problem is those lightning spear are lasting very short, right? And cooldown is 18 seconds, which has been reduced by my kraken energy, but it's still a significant amount. Sometimes just not even pressing the lightning spear, because they generate it automatically here and there, and it's way faster for me to just go in and zap in everything with lightning, chain lightning. Next, ultimate skills. I do use an ultimate. This is one of the mage builds that actually ultimate is preferable to, for example, something like Frost Nova. A lot of mage builds are just gonna roll Frost Nova later in a game because it's more convenient. You're giving that crowd control. You're giving like frost element, freeze element damage, whatever, for your seasonal stuff, for seasonal hearts, Malignant Hearts, and you make enemies vulnerable. But since I'm not stuck in vulnerable on this build, the vulnerable also was debuffed in this season, so we don't really care. We care about critical strikes more, and this is giving me a lot more damage, a lot of more generation of my Kraken energy, which is gonna litter the ground with in Kraken energy, and all this random generation of the random skills helping a lot, right? What else we have here? Okay, so Conquering Currents, a hidden enemy with shock skill increases the critical strike chance for reset upon critical strike, so it's a little bit more to critical strike. That's why I'm saying every second hit is critical, maybe even more than every second. Enemy deal less damage after being critically struck by your shock skills. Another damage reduction to me, right? And Convulsion, lucky hits have a chance to stun enemies, so this one is not actually needed. It's additional stun mechanic, but it's not happening that often, and we're not utilizing stun mechanic to the best of it anyway in this build. Early in this build I was using Weird Mastery, which is increasing damage to close enemies by 15x, right? But the moment I get constant generation of Kraken energy and constant like Kraken energy charge zapping enemies, I switch to overflowing energy, which is, in my opinion, way superior to Vir Mastery. Vir Mastery can like reduce enemy damage even with using some aspects, right? But I think it's still I prefer the overflowing energy and my utilizing my teleport often to proc this 3 seconds damage reduction. So the more often I'm utilizing it, I actually can teleport every like 3 seconds, even less than 3 seconds. So this is almost like every time in play the shimmer and teleport, unless I'm staying in one place, which is happening in the boss fights or elite fights. Not very often so, but it's sometimes happening. So overflowing energy, Kraken energy hits additional enemy, and every time every enemy hits, right, shock skill get cooldown reduction by 0.1 seconds and 0.2 for elites and bosses, 0.25. Mentioned before, when I'm fighting a lot of enemies, I can use my ultimate even at thrice per minute because of this overflowing energy just reducing the cooldown of my skills so super often. So that's about my skills, right? That's about my skills. What they're doing. This is gonna get you up until level 50, and after level 50 we start on the Paragon boards. You see, like we only like have 3 Paragon board here, which is like due to a lack of good glyphs to use for those Paragon boards. Which just proc me to maximize gain from from those particular Paragon boards instead of like just rushing for another glyph, another good glyph, right? It would definitely be different from another mages you play, and I have my Blizzard mage, which had utilized a different mechanic and different glyphs, and there was like so many more good glyphs I wanted to use, so it's a different from Lightning Mage. But we'll get to this a little bit later, because now I want to talk about my gear and my aspects on the gear and overall what stats on the gear I want to use here. So start with weapon, ancestral stuff. I was very lucky to roll for 800 certain item power, which is almost maximum damage I can get from it. We slotted basic skill damage here. That's why we haven't 18k here with Arcane Lash. Sometimes is doing good damage. So what do we have? We have intelligence, all stats, basic skill damage. So instead of basic skill damage, I would like to see here something like is a core skill damage, so it improve my damage for a critical for lightning strikes, right? Or and instead of damage to close enemies here, I want to see my damage to critical strike damage, improving critical strike damage. So it's not optimal gear. It's not optimal gear. Could be way better, but I more or less is doing the job. But here we want to talk about actually the aspects we're using on this gear. Chain Lightning. Chain Lightning has almost 80% a chance to chain 4 additional times, so basically make it instead of 5, 9 times. It's activated very often, and it's my chain lightning main source of damage. So it's I put it on my two-handed staff to improve the chance of this chain lightning activating additional times. Yes. Boots, we have crowd control here. Every time I'm proccing a flame shield, I'm moving through enemy, immobilizing them. I'm moving very often, immobilizing enemy, helping to utilize that crowd control damage, additional damage from my spear, from my staff, and basically another crowd control damage mechanic if you ever have any of them randomly, you know. Sometimes you just don't have like a choice but to roll with whatever. So I think it's a good modifier. Another good one, it could be like every time you reach in the point of became injured, you became immune right away, or rather not immune, you can shred your crowd control thing. But with this build, you're not gonna get like crowd control very often, if ever. So I went with the flame shield immobilization. Obviously, aspect of disobedience, it was very good before pre-season. They nerf it. It's still doing its job. I have 49% of physical damage resistance here due to my armor. On level 75, it's gonna drop obviously lower when we level up, but it's doing its job. It must be survivability aspect maybe for any build. We have Bolt of Lightning orbiting around you and dealing additional damage. So instead of a Bolt of Lightning just flying on the straight trajectory and sometimes missing a bunch of enemies, now I have more control over it. It's orbiting around me, I'm moving, hitting enemies with that orbit. It's not that big of a deal. You can add maybe like some survivability skill to it. There's another Bolt of Lightning aspect I was trying with this build, that Bolt of Lightning stuck into enemies and lasting longer, but I decided against it. Yeah, I decided against it. Decided this one is more or less, it's not optimal, but it's performing good for me. Basic skills grant damage reduction. That's why I'm using the basic skills from here and there. With my arc lash, it's 4.5 seconds. It could be better. 20% additional damage reduction. I'll take it. So we have another thing I want to talk about the gloves previously. Critical strike chance. That's basically you want on the gloves. And Rancor Chain Lightning. We only rolled 3 Rancor Chain Lightning, could be 4, which is gonna improve their overall damage over here. And you see I have all stats and intelligence almost on all of my gear here, which is like intelligence is a direct improvement to your damage for a sorcerer build. Another aspect is taking direct damage. You have 6% chance to reduce your cooldown for your cooldown for defensive skills, and that's how you can use this flame shield twice in every like 15 seconds, depending on the circumstances, maybe even more. So it's helping me tremendously, especially late in a game when my survivability suffer and I need this immunity and health restoration. So if you have lightning spear around here and intelligence, like you see here. Moving on, 18% chance for my trigger free cast of shock skill when I'm not using unstable currents. Unstable currents is my ult. So this is where we came in from. This random lightning spear, random ball of lightning circle around me, and additional chain lightning here and there. This is coming from this, and this is very good. We have, like you see, for stats on my amulet here, increasing my intelligence. The more intelligence you had with leveling up this paragon board, the more intelligence you get in from this percentage, right? So it's like a decent. When you reach the 1k intelligence, it's another like 68 intelligence increase. You can roll even higher. You see, this is only like sacred item because I never like roll better item for here. But yeah, this must be all defensive skills must be for teleport and flame shield, and that's like whatever you roll with after. Rings, critical strike chance, critical strike damage. We have instead critical strike damage, lightning critical strike damage, but it's also adding to critical overall critical damage. And like mentioned before, my build is all about critical striking. We have 18% X damage when you use skills, my chain lightning when we have 100 mana, and it's broken decently often. And we have another one here, skill using basic skill improve my core skill damage, so that's like another reason to using my arc lash key there. Reset my basics, giving me the damage reduction, giving me damage to core skills. So 1-2 strikes here and there happening every like 5 seconds, 6 seconds, depending on what you have here, and it's helping. Now the Malignant Heart. Malignant Hearts, it's a feature of this season 1, and we are gonna talk about best one for this build. Literally the best one for the lightning build. Here we go. First one, Vicious Heart. For each unique element you deal damage with, you deal additional up to 12 increased damage for 11 seconds. This is tremendous boost to your damage. So first of all, the lightning. You deal damage with the lightning to your enemy. That's 12x additional damage to your skill, since lasting. You just need during this like 11 seconds, you just need to use deal damage with any source of your skills, right? And you're gonna keep this buff indefinitely. Then we have Flame Shield, which is doing burning damage to my to enemies. Every time activating Flame Shield, it's proccing another 12%, up to 12% bonus to my skill damage. And I activated once, burning my enemy, and I just need to break my chain lightning or every like 11 seconds to keep this 2 buffs active all over the place. Alright, so this is already to 24x damage for 11 seconds, basically indefinitely, as long as you can hit enemy with anything. And there's another one, fire damage over here, Brutal Heart. I think I'm using it for basically for this increase additional 12 proccing this Vicious Heart, additional proc. So it does have suppressing some enemy damage 20%, and every time you're using a defensive skill, which is my teleport, and we already talked, we're using them quite often. So every time you're using a teleport, it's just dealing any damage, fire damage in a huge area, and proccing me this additional 12% to my overall damage. And finally, the Wrathful Heart. This is a cornerstone of this critical damage build. So critical strikes against subsequent enemy, all critical strikes and all subsequent damage against particular enemy for 0.27 seconds up to 4 seconds get absorbed into enemy, and for every second it's absorbed, it's stored into enemy, it's dealing additional 14x more damage, and then it's after 2.7 seconds it's explode, right? And with this additional damage, dealing explosion damage to enemy and everyone around them. This is such a crucial part of the build, because chain lightning every time chain lightning crit one enemy, it crit all subsequent enemies. they start storing those energy, the damage inside of them, and the moment it's unleashed, it's massive explosion. Every single enemy exploded, dealing damage to himself and to enemies surrounding them. That's why like we clean in all these hordes of like level 20 bomb enemies in an instant here with this build. You don't need to wait 2.7 seconds for damage to explode. You just need the moment the damage exceeds the maximum amount of health for in enemy health, it explode. It can be happening in half a second. It can be happen instantly. It can happen in 2 seconds or whatever. You don't need to wait this like 4 seconds, for example, maximum duration. But it's also given a good bonus damage to that elites when you're playing fighting a solo target. Is still basically dealing additional damage, especially if you're fighting with teammates, right? Every time I go in like storing that energy inside the bosses, world bosses, it's massive damage of millions of it's exploding for millions of damage, right? So it's helping in those like world bosses events, which I know is like not like very important, but it's gonna help you in the group plays. Give me a second. Too much talking. We talk, but there's still much to say about this build. So I'm gonna look at our stats really fast, right? You see intelligence, obviously the best stats here, and we are gonna improve it, working towards level 100. And dexterity giving me some critical chance here, 8 point. So critical strike chance 37%, but it's actually in reality is more, and almost not almost, like every second attack is critical, even more than that. Critical strike damage 123, and there's lightning skill damage additional 48 here. So we summon up that up here, and there's all damage, damage to elites, damage to crowd controls, damage to close enemies, damage with fire, and damage with lightning. We have some bonuses here. Could be better distribution. Could be less distribution. Damage with Kraken energy, which is you saw how we just walking by normal group of enemies. We just erasing them, doing nothing, just doing them damage with Kraken energy, because Kraken energy can also crit. Kraken energy can also crit. Dude, the game is so laggy right now. We just stay in here doing absolutely nothing. Let's just maybe move away from a portal, I don't know. Okay, so we saw the stats here, and now jump into Paragon points. Paragon points is the last aspect of the build, and a huge and crucial aspect of the build as well. The Paragon board, the glyphs, the overall distribution of the points. Alright, like you see, you would say my Paragon points all over the place. I already mentioned there is no good, very good glyphs for this build to utilize. The best glyph for this build is critical strike damage one, the destruction glyph. Critical strike includes all damage against enemy taken from you by up at 12%, so it's additional multiplier to your damage to enemies. That's why they exploding for a lot. I put it this one on. Do we have this boar? This one with a celestial conduit board have given you the most dexterity bonus after you level up the glyph to level 15. I have it only on level 15, so I haven't leveled up all my glyphs yet. That's like one problem. So that's the best glyph, utilizing all the dexterity here. Utilizing Kraken energy damage here, because it's alright to have it. And we do have a Ceaseless Conduit here, so more damage. They buff the Ceaseless Conduit is the current patch. More intelligence you have, more multiplicative damage to your Kraken energy. That's why it's so much more power. And basically when you fighting elites and boss, you have when you proc an ultimate, you have unlimited Kraken energy. So yeah, source of energy is source of damage, passive damage, more Kraken energy here, like you see. So we did buff it quite a bit. More lightning damage here as well. So I did took almost all of those blue nodes and yellow nodes that given me like non-physical damage to increase every 5% to my non-physical damage, currently giving me around 200-250 damage to my chain lightning. Obviously, the more you have this, it's additive damage, the less benefits you will get. But with 3 boards, I think you get like more or less a decent amount of this bonus. It's questionable if you want maybe instead of blue notes 5%. You actually 5 points to intelligence, especially moving to level 100. Maybe you would like to have 5 intelligence, way more than this 5% not here. So that's a thing to contemplate about, to think for you about. But you need to move on level 75. This combination of board, it's looking the best you can get. We more or less like optimize it too. Obviously, I would like to hear your thoughts, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, to this part on this point. Just like you need to bring a good argument to your point in order for me to actually examine it closely. So another glyph we have here, Kraken energy glyph. We get in this picking energy, increasing my damage by 15x% for 5 seconds. All right, I move it to the first board. I was using it over here, but we decided to move it to the first board. It's only 38 increased damage, but it's also level 5 only. I believe it's level 5. Yeah, it's level 5 charged. And yeah, like you see, we're taking this non-physical damage here as well. So we move into a next board here, which we have the non-physical damage again. Non-physical damage. It's don't have this maximum additional bonus, but additional bonus is just resistances, doesn't really matter. We move to this board. I believe it's enchanted board, or whatever it's called. That's increase your enchantment. Yeah, we're gonna talk about enchantment. Yeah, I almost forgot about this. Jesus Christ, almost forgot. It's a crucial part of the build too. Enchantments. But yeah, here we go. We have non-physical damage, non-physical damage from here, and more non-physical damage. I was planning to move over here to grab another non-physical damage, and subsequently get more intelligence to myself. I only have 3 board, I explained before, because I don't see any other good glyph to slot here. Maybe I'm like missing something. There's another glyph I probably interested a little bit in. It's, well, quite a bit in. It's a tactician glyph. Tactician glyph over here. Bonus to all rare nodes, we don't care, but deal increased damage for 4 seconds. A Rocket Warchief here. Welcome, welcome, mate. And greetings. We're summarizing the build here and the game itself. So I'm gonna talk a lot, mate. I'm gonna talk a lot. So yeah, the tactician glyph here. I miss it. There it is. 10% X to your damage after casting defensive skills, and I casting defensive skills every 4 seconds or even every 3 seconds. So that's gonna work. That's gonna give you more damage for sure, and it's probably give you more damage than this 22 non-physical damage, because it's multiplicative, this additive damage, and this diminutive returns every time like you're leveling up. It's higher and higher. But yeah, need to experiment with that. So that's another force glyph. Apart from Tactician, I don't want any other glyphs here, like to proc me to move to another Paragon board. So that's why I'll try to get maximum of this elemental damage. So every 5%, giving me around 250 damage to my chain lightning. Like, I mean, we can see it. So we can remove this one, 5%, right? I can't remove it. What can we remove? 5% over here. All right. So we have 14k 254 and 14k 451. So 200 damage. 200 damage with 1 point. It's not bad. It's not really that bad. How much intelligence giving me like damage in that regard? So let's see if we have like some 5.2 intelligence. Let's remove this one. So 5% intelligence here removed, and 410. All right. And 400. Okay, so it's giving me a decent amount. So you would think you would need to consider, right? At this point, instead of getting this 5% over here, all right, or 5% over here, and maybe it's better to increase your overall intelligence, especially when we multiply this intelligence by well, 7% almost with this. All right, and final part of the build, enchantments. How without enchantments? So the first enchantments, we have chain lightning enchantment, right? Chain lightning forms automatically after spending 100 mana. Sure, additional chain lightning. Yeah, bring it on, more damage, more critical hits, and more explosions overall. I'll take it. I was experimented a lot with second enchantment here. We had not a teleport. We had lightning spears, so for that additional 4% every time I begin a Kraken energy from lightning spear, getting 4% for a short duration to my damage. We had ball of lightning, picking critical strikes. We should have a lot forming ball, static ball of lightning. It's okay. But because of this build is so fragile, despite all of this, having all of these damage reductions, I roll in with Flame Shield enchantment. Every 2 minutes, you prevent the Flame Shield can prevent you from taking lethal damage, and it's happened quite often. Believe me or not, it's happened quite often for me, because this build requires a lot of concentration. Half a second. Miss my potion. Half a second, dead. Automatic flame shield procced. We're good. We can continue to fight, especially good in conquering these nightmare dungeons. That's all about this level 75 build, Chain Lightning Mage build in Season 1. I hope I didn't miss anything. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it's gonna work pretty well for you guys. Thank you very much for listening and watching, if you're watching it on YouTube. I was Teres here. Visit the channel. I visit my Twitch channel too. And now we're done with this part.